I am Nicole Rashat with the Investing News Network, and I'm here on day 2 of Minds and Money New York with Peter Grosskopf, CEO of Sprott. How are you today?
I'm well. Thanks for talking to me.
Thank you for talking with us. And how has the conference been so far?
Well, I just kind of got here. I'd been doing some other meetings in New York, and it looks good. Everybody's here with a smile on their face, and nice to see these days.
Okay, great. So it's day 2 of the conference. How does investor sentiment seem around the gold space right now?
I don't think I've ever seen it any worse. Uh, it's not just that gold has been lackluster compared to the other global financial markets. It's also that there have been some changes in asset management which have made sector funds like gold very unpopular. Basically, in a nutshell, if you can index it, it is being indexed. So what that does is it has the effect of benefiting the big companies and hurting the small. So when people see the small companies so out of favor and lack of buying interest, I think that just multiplies on itself. So it's in a bit of a vicious downward circle now, which is creating, on the flip side, some incredible buying opportunities.
Now, I was in your presentation, so I kind of know how you're feeling towards the price of gold. But for those who weren't there, how are you feeling about gold right now? I know we took another hit today. What is your sentiment, and how do you see it going forward in 2019?
Well, it's clearly very contrarian, and the reason it is because right now the confidence in the global financial system is very high. Most of these markets are very correlated now, stock and bond markets, and the feeling was post December that we were in this kind of Goldilocks environment where the economy was doing relatively well. That's the consensus out there. We don't necessarily share it. Debt levels are sustainable, interest rates are low, and that the Fed and other central bankers will always be there to lend a helping hand should the market need extra liquidity or enter into a crisis mode. So the confidence is very high. Gold is a contrarian signal to that confidence, and therefore the sentiment is quite poor in gold. And that's, I can almost say that gold is like a chameleon. It assumes an identity to different assets at different times. And right now, I think it's more related to the stock market and the bond market than anything else. If the stock and bond market is doing well, like it is now, gold is sinking.
Okay. Last time we spoke was Minds and Money in Toronto, and you mentioned that gold needed to diversify. Do you think that it's done that? You mentioned kind of in the um, like through kind of Bitcoin, kind of the that space. Has it done that? Has it tried to do that? Is it gearing up to that, or is it still kind of in need of diversifying?
Well, what I meant by that is diversifying its customer base or its holding base. And I do think there has been some accomplishments in that regard. I think that from a technology perspective, the platforms that were designed to bring gold to a new investor base for payments, for digitization, for trading, those technologies have now been built largely and built successfully. So, check mark number one, it's happened. On the adoption side, so bringing an actual larger user base, there's a lot of eyeballs looking at it, but the dollars have been disappointingly slow to come in. So we're obviously hoping that the next time gold gains favor, that we start to get some momentum on the new technologies, the digitization, the digital trading platforms, and the payment systems.
Okay, great. And just to circle back around to your presentation for our audience that obviously was not here today, can you just give me a bit of a breakdown on what you talked about? You kind of addressed where gold is now, and we've talked about it a little bit, but can you give a little bit of a extensive answer to that for those who weren't here for that?
We think it's a very good time to get into gold from a diversification standpoint. As I mentioned, equity bond markets are nearing bubble levels, and nobody can say for sure when that balloon will be pricked. But I think it's very prudent and sensible now, from many perspectives, for investors to move a bit of their wealth and particularly a bit of their cash into gold as a diversification strategy. So we can go through the 10 reasons for that, and they're all very sound. And you don't need to be a gold bug to subscribe to that. The second thing that we said is we believe in this digitization and the increasing the user base. We think eventually gold has to be usable as a payment system. Otherwise, it will never attain kind of viral status with the larger user base. It can't just be backed by gold bugs. And then the third thing we mentioned was from a Sprott perspective, we've set our company up to be a royalty-like platform in the sector. We manage funds, they earn management fees. We have leverage in three ways to a growth of our assets from markets, the growth of our assets from inflows, and then we have the potential for performance fees. So we think we have a very attractive investment ourselves for investors who are looking at the sector.
Okay, and that's kind of touching on my final question is just about Sprott in general. What is 2019 looking like for you guys?
We're very much open for business. So while other investors are shying from the sector, and you might even say there's a complete lack of buying interest in the equities, we are absolutely raising money and deploying money as fast as we can now. We're using this opportunity to high grade our portfolio. That is to dump the unsuccessful and potentially challenging assets and to focus on those that we have a high degree of confidence in, and we find no lack of buying opportunities right now. It's a pretty special time if you're a value investor or a contrarian.
Okay, great. Well, that is all the questions I have for you today. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but thank you so much for joining us. And once again, I'm Nicole Rashad with the Investing News Network on day 2 of Minds and Money New York, and joining me is Peter Grosskopf, CEO of Sprott.